Welcome to the Week 12 edition of Game Day Wrap-Up. Along with Mike St. Green, I'm Cameron Irvine. The playoffs are set. Mike, we had a wild Week 12 full of upsets. So we don't have enough time to talk about all of them because most of them didn't impact the playoffs too much in terms of the teams that won because they were already eliminated. But D.C. pulls the upset on Queen City. Sioux Falls pulls the upset on Denver. Houston pulls the upset on Mexico City, and those were just the few that didn't matter as much, Mike. This was a crazy Week 12, and we'll get to the big ones here in a minute.
Yeah, Cam, and personally, I'm glad it turned out the way it did. My old heart can't take so much drama anymore, and I'm glad that London was able to take care of business. And it turns out, I'm glad, that Las Vegas did us a solid, so I could just relax and watch the games and see how it all turned out this weekend. But yeah, it was upsets all over the place. A lot of results that no one expected to see. A lot of the teams that were out of it, they stepped up and kind of, if not ruined teams' seasons, they definitely made an impact on their seeding. So it was an interesting weekend. No end of the season, win or you in, losing you're out drama, but it was drama nonetheless. And it's on to the playoffs, and can't wait to see what happens next weekend.
So the drama ended up on Saturday night, not Sunday. We're in the span of about 20 minutes. London took down unbeaten Baltimore 34-24 by turning over Jack Wigmore repeatedly in the fourth quarter. And then right after that, Vegas completed a comeback on the road and stole one in Arizona 25-24. Those two upsets helped eliminate Louisiana and Lone Star, who ended up getting wins on Sunday, but it did not matter. And a lot of teams get frustrated when they get into 6-6 tiebreakers, but you become surrender to the 4- and 5-way tiebreakers because head-to-heads at that point, you almost never beat them all or lose to them all. And sometimes it's not about one specific win or loss. It's about the resume as a whole. And unfortunately for Lone Star and Louisiana, it just wasn't enough this season. But great wins on Sunday nonetheless. Let's get to the teams that made the playoffs. Vegas and London, Mike. Terrific, incredible upsets over the weekend. Let's start with the London Knights, just kind of shocking everybody. How did they do it?
Yeah. Well, first of all, Cam, both of these teams, London as well as Vegas, they came in with great game plans against the opposition. It was win and you hopefully get in, and lose, and you're more than likely definitely out for both of these teams. As it turns out, they would have been because of all the teams that made it to the 6-6 mark. But one thing about London, Cam, is that they can score points. And the last matchup against Baltimore, they put up points, but the difference was in this game is that they didn't have the 7 turnovers that went along with that previous matchup. And the other huge thing about London in this matchup was the defense has played extremely well over the past 3-4 weeks of the season since they had given up 51 to Baltimore in the first matchup. And that's really been the difference with London coming down the stretch. The defensive line has been, they've been pretty, solid all season long with William Davison up front, Chad Rowland, Cam Crosby. They've really done a great job up front, but that secondary has really come on strong here and made a big difference, as you mentioned, the 4 interceptions in the game last night.
Yeah, London is starting to find their own. Baltimore, I think, thought that they could slow London down one way, but one way doesn't always win in football. And London figured out enough adjustments to get past them and get a huge win. London's first ever trip to the playoffs. While you were watching that game intently, I was calling the Vegas-Arizona game, and Las Vegas kind of did the impossible. I mean, they really didn't look like they had a lot of juice. They were kicking field goals instead of touchdowns. Their secondary was picking off, Ashley Jackson, but the offense just was very unproductive, could not get moving. The Arizona defensive front, led by D.D. Sachs, was ridiculous. They were so good, and Vegas in the fourth quarter specifically saw the maturation of rookie quarterback Joseph Green, and despite all that pressure, he really put some incredible throws down the field in order for Vegas to come back and get that upset. And it hasn't been the easiest season in Vegas. They've been kind of up and down all over the place. They really have never put together a consistent winning streak, and they started so poor, 0-2. Remember when they lost in week 1, Mike, to Charleston 17-5? And we were like, what? What was that? They were a playoff team. Charleston wasn't in the play. And you fast forward like 12 weeks, and Charleston has one of the best secondaries in the league. And in hindsight, it's kind of like, oh, maybe that wasn't such a bad loss after all.
Not such a bad loss after all, Cam, especially breaking in a rookie quarterback at that time.
Right.
But one thing for sure with this Vegas team that they have struggled with is on offensive line. They have struggled to protect Joseph Green, vast majority of the season. But granted, they've been, going up against some stellar defensive lines as of late. I remember the Baltimore game when they got shut out in that game. Severon Yates was all over the place in that game, all over Green. And as you mentioned, there's Arizona defensive line. They gave him some problems early in this game, but they always seem to bounce back. And one thing that keeps them in the game in most games is that solid defense that they have. Slint Shady over there in the linebacker core, Max Jackson back there in the defensive backfield, Merrick Artera. I mean, you can go on and name. And you won't stop naming a great guy on that defensive side of the ball. And then when you add in that they can have an outlet and hand off to Scott Johnson every now and again to take some pressure off of Green in the passing offense, then that adds up to a 6-6 record. And hey, we're in the playoffs and we have a shot at the SFL title.
One of the wild card matchups, and we'll put them all up on the screen here in a little bit, but one of the wild card matchups ended up being 11 seeded Las Vegas at number 6 Queen City, and Vegas is 0-2 all time against Queen City. But it's kind of funny. Queen City plays like Buffalo, blue collar, roll your sleeves up, right? Go to business. Vegas plays like their city. They're flashy. They're spectacular. Forget the O-line. We'll figure it out on third down, right? I mean, the two teams embody the cities in which they represent, and just from that standpoint, I don't know, that catches my attention.
You pointing that game out, Cam. The first thing came to my mind is maybe this matchup may play right into the hands of Vegas. As you mentioned, Queen City, they're going to hand it to Jet Zero, 3 yards, cloud of dust. They're not going to bomb it out too much with A.J. Caswell and Deezer Powell and a receiving core over there. They're going to just play a possession-type game, try to keep it close to the vest. But as you mentioned, Vegas, they're going to drop back and they're going to go bombs away, whether it's Doug Britton, Mason Kirby, Scott Johnson can break out every now and again. Tiberius Bovine, he'll come through with a big catch every now and again. So this matchup is going to be very, very interesting. And we're going to see if Queen City is going to play into Vegas's hands and if they can come out with a big road victory over in Buffalo.
On the flip side of that, Queen City doesn't make many mistakes. They usually win the turnover battle, and Vegas, that's what gets their defense going. And if they're not capitalizing and getting turnovers off of Queen City, then maybe Queen City can control the game, try to slow them down. That's a really, from a coaching perspective, that's a very fascinating matchup.
And one quick add that you made me think about. No, they're not going to be aggressive on defense either. They don't have a big aggressive defensive line that's going to, get after you like that. Even though David Tilley, he has come on pretty good here as of late, but they're just going to sit back and let you make mistakes. Solid secondary, solid linebacker core with B.J. Lovelace, the rookie Cody Griffin. He got over double digits in interceptions after the game today. So, make no mistake about it. Queen City, there's no mistake that they're in the playoffs. They've struggled over the last 6 games or so, but it's going to be a great matchup.
Let's move to the Pacific Division, where there was more drama on Saturday as Vancouver actually pulls the division out. How did they do it? They shut down Portland in the second half, and took down the Fleet at the Shipyard. And then Los Angeles put up a stinker, lost to San Diego 16-7, and the Mavericks end up 4-8. San Diego played a phenomenal game, really clamped down on Los Angeles. And this LA Lycans team, Mike, is just, it's almost like once Robert Johnson stopped being the focal point of the offense, or once teams started to slow Robert Johnson down, this team has just not been the same. And they end up coughing the division away for the second consecutive season as Vancouver comes from behind and takes it from them.
Yeah, Cam, when LA started to, turn it on a little bit towards the middle of the season, I was like, okay, this is not going to be the same LA team that we saw last year, kind of struggle over the last 7, 8 games. I think they lost 5 of the last 7, but, still made it to the playoffs. But as you mentioned, they've kind of gotten figured out a little bit, it seems like, as of late. Robert Johnson hasn't done much at all on the ground. And the San Diego defense came yesterday. I mean, they came out to say, hey, if you're going to win the title, the division title, you're going to earn it. I mean, the defense played out of their minds, basically. They had an injury. Joe Duncan got injured on a play on defensively. They lost someone else, didn't they, Cam, on offense?
Owens.
Yeah, they lost Owens on offense. So, yeah. San Diego came in determined, and talking about teams and kind of going in opposite directions. San Diego won 4 of their last 8 games to turn things around for that franchise. But yeah, great game yesterday from the San Diego Mavericks as a whole to say, hey, we're gonna be a force in this Pacific Division next season. You guys look out.
San Diego's learning how to win, and on the flip side of that Pacific Division, Tom Pepper just makes 400 yards look easy. It's more than any other quarterback in the league. He throws for over 400, and you don't even blink.
Yeah.
I mean, when they're on, they're so terrific. And Portland just did not have enough offensive firepower, which has been the Achilles heel of this team all season, to keep up, quite frankly, with Vancouver's electric offense on Saturday.
Yeah, Vancouver, they basically took Portland out of this game from the very beginning. They were up 14-0 in the first quarter. I mean, Chris Curtis, who we hadn't called his name a whole lot this season, it doesn't seem like, I mean, he was involved early. Gerald Giudice on the defensive line had a big sack in this game. Kendra Hall had a touchdown catch, which she typically seems that's all that she does, is catch touchdowns every game. Tom Pepper, he was amazing. It just seems like you just look up and then all of a sudden he's at 300 yards, and you don't really know how he has gotten there. But they really put Portland behind the 8 ball early. And by Portland going down early as they did, they really exposed O.J. Bruin to the Vancouver defense and pass rush, and they just never got anything sustained going. And even they did a great job on shutting down Ezekiel Love in this game. He only had 95 yards in this game. We'd say only because that's very average for Love, if not below average. He did have a touchdown, but it just never seemed like Portland would get anything going in this game, and they actually didn't.
And that's probably the most underrated part of Vancouver's performance was their rush defense. The offense gets a lot of praise, but they really made Ezekiel Love work for every single yard, and that was a pretty impressive showing. Let's talk about the teams on the rise and the teams that are falling, and that'll kind of take us through the wild card round and wild card previews as we get into it. But no matchup personifies this more than Los Angeles, who we were just talking about, against Charleston. The 9-8 game in the wild card. Los Angeles comes into the playoffs on a 2-game losing streak. Charleston comes into the playoffs on a 2-game winning streak. And there is no team that I think is a bigger question mark on this stage more than the Charleston Predators, Mike, who get to play at home on national television, which is the smallest market in the league, right? This is kind of their moment against big bad LA, right, to see what they can do. And after giving up 78 points in 2 weeks to Florida and Queen City, they've given up 16 points to Carolina and Carolina and Jacksonville combined. But that's the problem, isn't it, Mike?
Mm-hmm.
Charleston has not shown up on the big stage against the top teams in the league, but they have taken care of all the teams under them in the standings. A bunch of 6-6 squads, a bunch of 5-win, 4-win teams. Who are the Predators? How good are they? I think is the biggest question of the wild card round.
I think they are who their record says that they are. I think they're 7-5. They actually, that's what their record is: 7-5, 6-6 type team, and they've been in that position over the last 3 or 4 seasons. Pretty much, really, they just never have gotten that signature win to put them over the top. We know what they're going to be. We know what they're going to do. They're going to a veteran defense that's going to be hard nosed, play you tough. Grind it out on defense, and as you mentioned, the secondary has grown to be one of the better secondaries in the league. Man, they have a bunch of ball hogs up over there. But then on offense, we know you're going to get a huge dose of Keith Swearingen. You're going to see Buchanan Simon. In the passing game, Kenny McCarro. He's going to get involved as well. And we even saw a Lyric Da Vinci sighting this weekend with them opening it up a little bit, but. Who Great they game. Are, I think they're just a tough-nosed, grinded-out team. And but man, if they can get anything more offensively, I think in the playoffs they're going to be a dangerous team, Cam, because that's the way you want to win in the playoffs. You want to win the tough, tight games, and if you can get just enough offense and the defense creates turnovers and flip the field, the Predators could be a dangerous team in the playoffs this season.
I think Charleston hit the jackpot on the matchup, not because Los Angeles is a bad team, but they're very similar teams. I mean, LA, their strength is picking you off because you're too aggressive. Well, Charleston doesn't care about being aggressive. The Charleston needs a team that makes mistakes on offense in the passing game. That's been Los Angeles over the past few weeks. They've made a ton of mistakes in the passing game, and they've got to get Robert Johnson going. So it seems like two teams going in opposite directions, but yet Charleston has not got a signature win, which, I just wonder. It's going to be interesting what Jack Static does with this game, if LA is a road favorite or not, just because Charleston has not gotten that signature win this season. So that's going to be interesting.
Well, real quick on that game, Cam, you just mentioned the quarterbacks and the turnovers. Sully Richardson, I think 10 interceptions over the last 2 weeks, and TD Drew with 4 touchdown passes this weekend. So that could be the difference. Both of these teams also have contract kickers under their belt with Burchett and Ems. Tough, tight game may come down to those kickers.
It's amazing, Mike, the way this bracket fell. In every matchup, except maybe the St. Louis-Vancouver game, you've got a team that's on the rise, that has a winning streak, and you've got a team that has a losing streak that's going kind of in the opposite direction. It's pretty fascinating. The next one is Arizona-London. Arizona has lost 2 in a row to Vegas and Mexico City. 2 playoff teams. Those are 2 quality losses, but Arizona still lost those games. And then you've got London on a 2-game winning streak. They took care of D.C., and then, of course, they beat Baltimore. That's the 10-7 game. Johnny Pickler versus Ashley Jackson. First playoff game at home in Scorpions history. First game ever for London postseason game in their franchise history. You can't ask for more storylines than this game provides. How about the receiving corps, too? The Hands brothers versus St. Green, Kalia, and Storm. I mean, this is just a lightning bolt matchup. Will Todd, Benji Matson. I mean, it's terrific.
Yeah, last time they met, Cam, the game ended up 41-39, if I'm not mistaken. So I expect fireworks again in this game. But as you mentioned, teams going in opposite directions. London's on a 2-game winning streak. Arizona's lost the last 2. But and the other question I have about Arizona, at least for me, and during the course of the season, even over the past couple of seasons, every time I personally think that, okay, Arizona's turned the corner. They're headed in the right directions. They're going to be a playoff team, even a championship contender. you'll throw a game in there like, oh, they lost earlier to Denver, so to speak. It's always that one game. I can't remember that entire schedule, but it's always someone in there. The week that I think, okay, this is Arizona's week. Oh, then they fall to Vegas.
Right.
So I was just wondering which Arizona we're going to see in the playoffs. I think I know which London we're going to see. We're going to see a team that's going to throw the ball a lot. That's not going to change. High-powered offense, but the one thing that may tip things in their favor in this matchup is the defense. They've been playing extremely well over the past few weeks, so it's going to be interesting to see. I expect fireworks either way from both sides, but can Arizona step up and make plays when the lights are on them? And can London, what can they do? Are they going to come in nervous in this first ever playoff game? Or we're going to see more of London than we've seen pretty much all season long?
Arizona's owner-coach, Eddie Gage, he works for the Diamondbacks now. Sorry, Mike, but the Diamondbacks are not a playoff team, so he's done and ready to attack London. And I think you'll see this is probably the one matchup of the wild card round where both of these teams, even though Arizona's on a 2-game winning streak, they will be razor sharp. They will be ready for this game, and that should be exciting. Now, the one matchup that doesn't follow the trend of losing streaks, winning streaks necessarily, although you kind of feel that way. St. Louis had a rough showing against Atlanta, and Vancouver has won a couple in a row, but St. Louis has been playing some good football up to this point. That's the 12-5 matchup. The problem is, even though Vancouver is surging, they weren't surging when they played St. Louis just a few weeks ago. In fact, the Gladiators won that game. So you look at a 12-5 and you go, last year's 12-5 was LA Fort Worth, and we never really had big expectations for that game. But this one, because of the history between the two teams, that's a tough draw for Vancouver.
Yeah, in St. Louis, they've been up and down all season long. But as you mentioned, that's why they're 6-6. So they're hot one week, they're down one week. But are their downs as bad as the 6 losses may indicate? And I'm going to say no. Like you said, they're a solid team. They're a good team. They just they lost to some good teams. No, their downs are not as down as you may think. And if any team can give this Vancouver passing offense any trouble, it's going to be St. Louis. I mean, they have 6 great defensive backs on this roster that make plays. And what I did take notice of them today, even in a loss, the defensive line, they were all over Bryant Dynasty in that matchup today. So can they get enough pressure on Tom Pepper to force some errant throws and create some turnovers and keep Robert Redford under control on the ground? It remains to be seen, but I think it's a great matchup for St. Louis to draw in the 5-12.
St. Louis is 3 of their 6 losses are to the top 4 teams in the league: Florida, Baltimore, and Atlanta. As that Atlanta loss looks even better after the way the regular season ended, and their one signature win, or their best signature win, I should say, is against Mexico City, the other team in the top 4. So St. Louis has been playing some tough teams and playing them difficult, although the Atlanta game got away from them. By the way, we're not talking a lot about some of the top teams. Like we mentioned, Mexico City got upset in Week 12, but Florida was the one team in the top that outside of Atlanta that looked super good. They just Carolina was not an upset threat. It was an ugly game in the rain, but Florida breezed past them 8 in a row. So Florida, we see you. We know we're not highlighting you, but we see you, and we'll see you next week in the quarterfinals.
Ho-hum, right, Cam? 8-game winning streak.
8 in a row, whatever. Right.
Another 10-win season. Hey, ho-hum, Florida's doing Florida type things.
Yep. Hey, we'll see them in the quarterfinals. Hey, if we're talking about you in the wild card round, you're not as good as the teams that we're not talking about right now. And we'll see Florida the next week. All right, Mike, game balls for Week 12.
All right, first game balls is someone we've kind of talked about a little bit already, and who really hasn't gotten a lot of shine from us because, ho-hum, he only does it every week, so why talk about it? But division title on the line. Came through from basically the first quarter on. Tom Pepper, 433 yards, 3 touchdowns. He gets my first game ball.
Yeah, Pepper, he really, over the course of the season, the biggest thing I've noticed, Mike, is how he's spreading the ball out to his receivers.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
Chris Curtis was really quiet at the beginning of the season, and he is really coming on. And you know, Dan Daly's getting going a little bit better, but Kendra Hall and Brett Killian, I mean, this receiving unit is ridiculous, and that's due in part to Tom's great proficiency to spread the ball around, get everybody involved.
Yeah, and they like getting the ball downfield too, Cam. That's what I like about this team. They, you know, not a bunch of short stuff. They're going to attack you down the seams, attack you on the corners and the post routes. They're going to get downfield. And that's why it seems like, I guess, they struggle a little bit when and all of a sudden you look up and hey, Tom Pepper, 350 yards plus, 400 yards, and ho hum. But yeah, they keep winning, and Vancouver are in the playoffs again with a solid record and in the 5th seed, and they're going to be dangerous.
All right, I'm going to go Zach Haldorf for San Diego. 3 picks, including a put it on the poster moment with the one-hander over the head. Helped limit Los Angeles to 7 points. Sully Richardson had no touchdowns and 5 interceptions, and they really just clobbered Los Angeles in the biggest moment. I mean, look, that was San Diego's Super Bowl, and they came out and they won their Super Bowl, and they're not wasting any time in making moves. They're going to need another quarterback. Javier Vasquez is going to Denver, an administration role. And they've made a lot of adjustments on defense too. So this is going to be interesting. But Zach Haldorf, he was the key, the linchpin for that Maverick defense, and he gets my game ball.
Definitely, Cam. He had an extremely great game yesterday, as well as that entire Maverick defense. They definitely came out to shut the Los Angeles offense down. I don't think I remember hearing Davius Reed's or Chris Lee's name all day long. I mean, they just shut these guys down, and Zach Holdorf definitely deserves your first game ball.
Who's next?
Cam, I'm going with Dave Burr.
Okay.
Yeah, Houston out of the playoffs, but you know they were fighting for a playoff spot and hoped for a whole lot of help. But Dave Burr, 324 yards, 2 touchdowns, and aside from that, Cam, he's been one of the best rookies all season long. He's been consistent. It's very few, if any, just bad games that I could point to that he's had all season long. It was an excellent pickup for Houston in this year's draft, and he's performed well all season long. A huge game against Mexico City. As I mentioned, the 324 yards, couple touchdowns. So Dave Burr, gave his team a chance to make the playoffs. They came away with the victory. Fell a little short, because of some outcomes the rest of the weekend. But he gets my second game ball.
Dave Burr at the end of the season. This was a fascinating rookie quarterback class because at the beginning of the season, it looked like Eric Price for Denver.
Yeah,
because he looked like he was picking up where Miller left off, and he was really efficient, and they really used him really well. And then he kind of fall off as Denver fell off, and Joseph Green, was rough early, almost kind of like a project player, and he has really come into his own. But from the beginning, Dave Burr has been so consistent. He is a building block for that franchise, Mike, and a building block that Houston so desperately needed after struggling with player retention and things like that. I mean, he means so much to this team, and had such a great season, and it was pretty amazing to see them beat Mexico City, and now Houston leads that series all time, which is just great. That's probably the only series outside of maybe Baltimore that Mexico City isn't winning right now. Like. That's pretty awesome from Dave Burr. I'm going to go Mason Kirby for Las Vegas. Did you know, Mike, that since Mason Kirby left Seattle, now remember, when he was in Seattle in season 13, he ended the dynasty. He ended the Storm dynasty with that touchdown as time expired. And he has been big play Mason Kirby ever since. And since he has come to Las Vegas, he has 3 straight seasons of at least 80 targets and 900 yards. He had 1,000 yards in season 15, and this season, I feel so bad for him, 996. He was 4 yards shy of 1,000. But this guy makes the biggest plays in the biggest moments, and I think he personifies this offense. He is just electricity to this team. And he was that against Arizona, their leading receiver this week.
Yeah, Cam, that's a great second game ball. As you mentioned, Mason Kirby, big plays all the time. And he came through with a big play late in this game to put Vegas on top and secure their playoff berth. So, yeah, that's a great second game ball.
Last one.
I struggled with this last one, Cam, but I got to go with a team that we mentioned already. That's one that going to be competing for a title for sure. I got to go with Evan Carroll in the Florida and Carolina game. He came through with 3 interceptions in this game. The Florida defense intercepted Matt South 7 times overall in this game, and it just personified the balance of this Florida Storm team. That teams are going to have to deal with whoever would meet them in this quarterfinal round, because the defense is strong. Bullet Biletsky had a huge game, 159 yards on the ground as well, and Matt South and the Carolina offense, Cam, they came in playing pretty well, at least up until the last couple of weeks. Matt South was 375 plus in most of these games, and they totally took Carolina out of what they've been doing over the past few weeks. So Evan Carroll with the 3 interceptions and the big Florida win gets my last game ball.
He was all over Harish Prasad. They had that mapped out, like a glove. And that was probably the best Evan Carroll game I have seen in a really long time. So that's a great game ball. My last game ball, Mike, I really struggled with this one too, because there were a lot of great candidates this week, but I don't think I can give it to anybody else except Reggie Streeter.
Yeah.
Reggie Streeter announced his retirement, and look, hopefully he'll tell me why he's leaving, because usually, we never really know why. But a lot of times it's just life. A lot of times things run their course. You just don't know. And Reggie Streeter is one of those players that the SFL community really never got to know, which is a shame. We never got to meet him at a convention. We never, he's not necessarily active in the game chats, while the games are going on and things like that. But he has been in this league for so long. And Mike, he's got a record, one of the most coveted league records out there, most rushing yards in a game, 424. He did it against New Orleans, which ended up being the team that he played for. Why? Because he did it when he was in London. He set the record as a London Knight and did it against New Orleans, then ended up playing for that team after New Orleans was bought. And Gerald Smith did a great job of convincing him once he was in New Orleans, hey, come back. Right? Come back. We need you. We're trying to build something here, and we need you. And he gave it his all. And it didn't matter what he did today. They blew out Tulsa. They weren't about to get upset by Tulsa like some other teams this week. And they took care of business. But Reggie Streeter is a legend, and hopefully we see him for some Hall of Fame speech someday, because it doesn't matter if we know you well or we don't really know you at all, but you're still an SFL player, and you're always going to be an SFL player, and we're always going to celebrate and tell your story. So Reggie Streeter gets the game ball.
Yeah, great game ball, Cam, and great tribute. But yeah, he did. We don't all get to go out on the fairy tale of winning the championship, but he did score a touchdown today. I don't think he had a huge numbers game, but he did get a touchdown, and his team got a win. So he's able to finish his career getting in the end zone, as well as scoring and his team getting a victory. So, and one thing you mentioned, Cam, that kind of stood out to me, saying, he's not very visible around the community, but we met Robert Redford earlier in the season a few weeks ago, but you could see his passion about the league, and I'm pretty sure Reggie's the same way. You wouldn't stick around that many seasons and years if you're not passionate about this league. So yeah, as you mentioned, hopefully we can get to meet and see Reggie at a Hall of Fame speech or convention somewhere in the near future.
He played for 6 seasons. He only made one playoff trip. That was when Louisiana made it all the way to the semifinals, and he scored 6 touchdowns in those playoffs. Remember the playoff game that he had against Vancouver, where he just went, he was out of control.
Yeah.
And that was just a crazy performance by Reggie Streeter that day. And these are the moments and the memories that we remember. And man, if you don't think, and I'm sure he does, but if you don't think that you've made a difference to other players in the league that want to model their game after you, that want to be you, be your player on the field, you're kidding yourself. Great career for Reggie Streeter. He was the only player in the player progression era to have over 2,000 yards in multiple seasons. He had 2246 in that magical season 15 run with Louisiana. So these people mean a lot to this community and to us and to me personally, and we will miss him very much. All right, that's our Week 12 wrap-up, and we will see you for the playoffs next weekend across the SFL family of networks. Hey, if you've never seen an SFL playoff game, it's just a little bit different. Hits you a little bit different. We're going to have lots more presentation, lots more flair, and lots more excitement, lots more storylines. And we have 2 games on the SFL family of networks. You can catch us on our Facebook page, our Twitter page, our YouTube page, our Twitch page for those playoff matchups, and that starts Saturday at 1 Eastern. For Mike St. Green, I'm Cameron Irvine. This has been Game Day Wrap-Up Week 12. We'll see you in the playoffs.